In this video, I'm going to show you how to make elastic encasing, which is sample number 15. So let me show you how to get started. Okay, so first you need to cut out a piece of fabric that is a rectangle, and it needs to be 11 inches wide and then about 18 inches long. And the grain needs to be going in this direction, so the width direction, not length. So go ahead and do that, and then you need to get 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch elastic and cut it to be 10.5 inches long. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is fold this tube in half, and then you need to sew it up using a 1/4 inch seam allowance so that it becomes a tube instead of being a rectangle piece of fabric. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so once you've sewn a 1/4 inch, go ahead and iron this seam flat and open. Okay, so once you have ironed this flat, then you can just pick this or this to be the bottom, and we're going to need to do a double fold hem that is 1/2 inch. So it needs to look like this, where it is a nice hem and you don't see the raw edge. So to do that, you're pretty much just going to measure 1/2 inch. If you really want, you could get a pencil out if that helps you. So you could mark 1/2 inch, and then from there another 1/2 inch. And so this would fold up and meet that line. So I guess it's essentially 1 inch up. So you could just draw 1 inch line around the bottom. Okay, and then you would probably just use your fingers to press it for the time being. You could even kind of do this for a moment and then really match it up with the line. So you might have to pull it down like that, roll it down, match it up with the line, crease it, match it up with the line, crease it, match it up, crease it. And then once you have folded it once, like I mentioned, it needs to be folded again. So to do that, we want it to be 1/2 inch again, but we already kind of have a guide now. So all you really simply have to do is just fold this in again, roll it in, and then there we go, make sure it got rolled in all the way. And then just kind of find where the end of this flap meets, and just kind of, you can kind of even roll it and it'll kind of stop on its own once it meets that edge. And of course, make sure you're always lining up the seam. And if you want to be absolutely sure, you know, you can just kind of peek inside, but once you have folded it, you'll need to iron it, And then you'll need to sew it at the inner width of the presser foot. When you're looking to sew along this edge here, it does need to be inner width of the presser foot, but the fabric fold edge needs to align along this left toe like this, so that it can sew a line right about there, like that. Not the right side, because then that'll put the stitch line over here and the flap can come up a lot. So, left side. Alright, go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is what it should look like all the way around. Nice and even. And yes, as I have mentioned several times, this seam line needs to match up here. And it needs to get sewn over with these flaps open, which is why I had you iron it. So if not, you need to go back and correct that. And then the next step is to focus on the top here. So we need to make like a tube at the top that the elastic can go inside of, right? Because we're kind of we're kind of like 2/3 of the way there. So we have to finish the top here. So in order to do that, you need to first fold this down 1/4 inch, and then the second fold is 1 1/4 inch. So I recommend again that you just get out a ruler, and if that is 1/2 inch, then this is 1/4 inch. But since I'm going to be, no, that's right, 1/4 inch. Okay, and then do it on the other side too. Any kind of prep work you can do for yourself to help you, save you a lot of time and trouble. Okay, so the first fold, that line ends up going on the inside. If you would rather have a line, like a guideline where you fold up to, then what you can do is you can actually mark 1/2 inch across this entire tube. And then the 1/2 inch, you'd be able to have a guideline that you fold this up to. So whatever is easiest for you, go ahead and fold this line all the way around and iron it, and then I'll show you the second fold. Okay, so as you can see, I ironed that 1/4 inch fold all the way along, and the second time you fold, it needs to be 1 1/4 inch wide. So to do that, I'm going to mark 1 1/4 inch here. I'm just going to make sure I measured that right on this side. Okay, yes, I did. And okay, but that's probably going to be where it goes up like this. So from that line, need to do it again. 1 1/4 inch. So that means that once I bring this edge up to here, you can kind of see on the inside that 1/4 inch fold we did the first time. So you will flip it like that, and you might have to roll it up a little to match that line. Yeah, so go ahead and then iron this down, and then I will show you the next step from there. Alright, so I officially ironed this double fold, and so now, similar to the bottom, we need to close up this double fold. However, unlike the bottom, we still need to think about the fact that this elastic needs to go inside somehow. So we're going to need to leave a gap. So you're going to sew, again, inner width of the presser foot on the left side, you know, so it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. And then I recommend you leave about a 1 to 2 inch gap, probably a 2 inch gap, just anywhere. So that means, you know, you'll sew, maybe from like here to here, you're gonna not sew though. And you can mark that with pencil if it helps you. And just to show you what I mean, let's see if I can find an example. So on this piece, on this example piece, you can see that there is, you know, a regular seam allowance going along here. But then when we get to this spot, there's this original seam line ends here, and then we kind of see a different color thread here to here. So that's where they left the gap and where they inserted the elastic. And then after they inserted the elastic, they just went back to the sewing machine and they kind of started up a little bit where they left off, and then just kind of went over that gap and then a little bit beyond it to seal that up. So let me show you what it looks like with a gap. Alright, so as you can see, I have left a gap right here, but it is sewn all the way the rest around the tube. And then after you have done that, go ahead and put one of these pins, diaper pins, clothespins, on one end of the elastic strip. And basically, you're going to put it in there, and that pin gives you something to grab onto. So you'll go over here, shove the pin in there, pull the pin, and I recommend that you just be careful about the tail end of the elastic. You don't want it to slip completely inside, and then you have to fish around for the other end of it. So you could, if you want, put another one on this end, or you could just get a pin and hold it in place. I'm gonna see if I can manage to do it without losing it, without using another pin. And it's okay if it starts to scrunch, because that's actually exactly what we want. You might see examples of this like on pajama pants, the bottom of sweatpants. Okay, so once you have pulled the elastic all the way through, I recommend you kind of just shove the fabric like really far down, just so you have you don't have all that getting in the way when you're trying to sew the elastic together. So we need the elastic to be now like one singular piece, not just the strip. So to connect them, you're you're just going to overlap them and then sew this rectangle with an X through its shape. So this is where that turning the corners practice comes in really handy, because you would start, you know, just like from here or something, down, across, up, across, then diagonal, up, and then diagonal, and it will never come apart after you sew it like that. We don't want to sew the elastic together like this, because then it'll do like this, and then you'll have this really annoying thing poking through the fabric. So just do it in an overlapping fashion. So let me show you what that looks like after it's done. Okay, so as you can see, I did the little shape I talked about, and then you can kind of just let it go right in there like that. And then of course, as I mentioned before, the final step is sealing up this hole. So you'll need to go over to the sewing machine and then just finish this gap. And you might have to, while it's on the sewing machine, you might just have to hold it on both ends while it sews, because the elastic, you know, wants to scrunch it. So just do your best to make it as even and straight and matching up with the other, you know, sew line as possible. And then you would flip it inside out, and it should look like this from the outside. So that is how you do elastic inside casing.